and welcome to episode 20 of Book Writing Tips, Quick Tips for New and Seasoned Authors. And I am your host, Alba Arango. And can I just say for a moment, I cannot believe it's already been 20 episodes. That is so cool. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. In today's episode, I am going to talk about something I thought would be kind of interesting for those of you who have not yet published your books. And that is 5 things I wish I had known before publishing my first book. So for those of you who don't know a lot about me, I have self-published 12 books. Book 13 comes out October 1st. And don't worry, I will put a link to pre-order the book in the description. But as a self-published author, there are a few things that I really just wish I had known before I had hit that publish button with that very first book. So that's the plan for this episode, is to hopefully give you guys some insight that I didn't have so that you guys don't make the same mistakes that I did when I published my first book. So sit back, relax, and let's talk self-publishing. Alrighty then, so 5 things I wish I knew before I hit that publish button for the first time. So this episode will be in 2 parts. In the first part, I will cover the 3 things I think are pretty important that all self-published authors should know. And then in part 2, I want to talk about the last 2, including getting your books into bookstores like Barnes & Noble. So if that is important to you, please stick around for part 2, because there are some things you definitely need to know before you hit that publish button. So let's get down to it. Part 1. First 3 things I think you should know, I wish I had known before I hit that publish button. And the first one has to do with book covers. Now, you know that expression, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I don't know exactly how true that is. I mean, it should be true. You might have the most fantastic book in the world, but if it's got just an okay cover, you might, as a reader, not even pick it up to read the back to see if it's something you want. And think about it. As a reader, you go into a library, you go into a bookstore, and chances are the first thing you do is you look at a bookshelf and you look at the books that are facing out, not just the spine where the whole front of the book is facing out. And you probably glance the whole bookshelf, and then your eyes will focus on one that really catches your attention. A book cover that really stands out, that makes you want to pick it up and read the back. That's how important book covers are. And here is the mistake that I made in my not just first book, I think it's 6 books, is that I made my own covers. And that's fine for some of you, because some of you have talent. Some of you are graphic designers. Some of you are artists, and you have that capacity to make amazing covers. I am not that person, and my guess is that many of you out there are also not that person. So think about this. Amazon adds 6,000 books per day on Amazon. 6,000. That means in any one given week, there's like 35,000 more books added to Amazon. And that's, of course, not 35,000 books in your specific genre, but out of that 35,000, there's probably at least a couple hundred in your genre. I mean, unless you write like romance or sci-fi, then it's gonna be in the thousands. So your book cover has to stand out. And mine they just weren't. I mean, they were cute. They were kind of cool. My mom liked them. But in reality, when I would go to book festivals, which that is one thing I did a lot of. I went to a lot of book festivals in California. I did some in Arizona, and of course here in Vegas. And yeah, I sold some books. But when you looked at my book covers and then you looked at other authors that were there selling, I realized that my covers not only did not stand out, they didn't even look like they were on par with their quality book covers. So having a book cover that stands out, that looks professional, is actually an important thing if you want your book to stand out to new readers. Now, if you already have a ginormous following. Maybe you're an influencer on TikTok, or maybe you are a celebrity chef, or you are someone that already has a significant following. It may not be as important for you to have like the coolest book cover, but if you're like me, an absolute nobody, I was a teacher. I guess I wasn't a nobody, but I was nobody in the author realm. nobody knew who I was. Having a great book cover is a way for it to stand out. So after my sixth book, I decided, you know what? I think maybe I need to think about getting professional covers. And let me just tell you, when I got my professional covers, it was night and day, the difference in book sales at book festivals. Parents would come to my table and they were drawn to the characters on the front of my book, something that I never really saw with my homemade covers. So that is one thing I really think you should pay attention to, and that is the look of your book cover. Now, I am going to, not next week, but probably the week after that, have an entire podcast episode about book covers. So do stay tuned for, my podcast episode on book covers, where I will give you ideas of how to go about finding a book cover designer, or ways maybe that you can do it, maybe less inexpensively, but something that's going to be a little bit better than your own homemade cover. So that's one thing. All right. Thing number 2, ISBNs. And I must say, I have to be grateful. I had an author friend who, I am not lying, the week before I published my very first book, talk to me about ISBNs, because that is something I really didn't know a lot about. And when you go on Amazon, go to KDP, one of the things they offer you is a free ISBN. So let me just talk about ISBNs in general. If you aren't very familiar with ISBNs, by the way, if you aren't familiar with ISBNs, I have done a couple of really short videos about ISBNs, and they're on both YouTube and TikTok. And if you don't follow me on YouTube and TikTok, please consider following me. I do a lot of really short, like 60-second quick tips, writing tips, publishing tips, marketing tips. I do a lot of just really short tips. And if you don't follow me, I would appreciate you giving me a quick follow on TikTok. I'm at Alba Arango 007, or on YouTube, I'm just Alba Arango. Look for me. And that's a good way to, connect with me as well in that way. But I have done a couple of short videos about ISBNs. ISBNs are an identification number that is given to your book that lets libraries, bookstores know the identification number for your specific title. ISBNs can be purchased directly through Bowker. If you are publishing through Ingram, Ingram will offer you a discounted ISBN if you buy it through them. Now, let me talk to you about that right now. I think their discounted rate now is $85. And if you buy it directly through Bowker, it's, I believe, $125. So it is a significant discount if you buy it through Ingram. But let me just give you this warning. Heed my warning. If you buy it through Ingram, you are tied to Ingram. You cannot then publish your book through Amazon yourself. Ingram will distribute it through their extended distribution to Amazon, but you cannot upload your book directly to Amazon with Ingram's ISBN. So now you have, and Ingram will be listed, I believe, this may not be accurate, but I believe you will be listed as Indie Publishing or Ingram Publishing as the publisher instead of your name. So I would highly, highly advise to buy your ISBN straight through Bowker. Now, the good news about buying it straight through Bowker is you don't have to buy just one. You can actually buy a bundle. And let me just kind of explain that to you. You will require a separate ISBN for hardcover, a separate one for paperback, and a separate one for ebook. So you're already looking at 3 ISBNs. If you buy a bundle directly through Bowker, you can buy 10 for $295, which is way, way cheaper than any discounted rate that Ingram can get you. So you're already making a deal on that. And if you are planning on publishing multiple books, they do have a bundle of 100 for $595. So now you're looking at way, way cheaper. And they do have, I think, a bundle of 1,000. But I don't even know how much that is, because I can't even imagine needing 1,000 ISBNs. But it's much cheaper. I will put a link to Bowker in the description so that you can go straight there and take a look at purchasing your ISBNs through them. Now, the third thing I want to talk about that I did not know for the first several books that I published is that you can get a Library of Congress card number for your book, but it has to be done before you publish the book. You cannot get a Library of Congress number after you have published your book. So once you hit that publish button, you cannot get a Library of Congress number. Now, the importance of a Library of Congress number, it's not necessary, but it is the catalog number that bookstores and more specifically libraries use to categorize your book. So without a Library of Congress number, a lot of libraries may not take your book. Now, that is important if you're planning on getting your book into libraries. And the best part about it is that it's completely free. You don't pay absolutely anything to get the Library of Congress number. And the great thing is it is available to self-published authors. It didn't used to be. So I'm going to put a link in the description to get your Library of Congress number. For self-published authors, it's actually called a pre-assigned catalog number. It's a PCN. And I will put a link in the description so that you can go straight there and sign up. Just give them a couple of weeks to get you that number so that you can have it and put it on the information like underneath the ISBN on your copyright page. But please do this ahead of time, because once you hit that publish button, you cannot get a Library of Congress number for your book. So that is something I did not know on the first few books that I published. Now, before I get to part 2, let's do the crazy law / writing prompt. If you are new to the show, every week I give you a writing challenge, a law that was once upon a time in history an actual law, and the challenge is to write a story based on that law. It's just a good way to, flex those writing muscles, maybe give you a little bit of a distraction from your work in progress. But here you go. This week's crazy law. In Lincoln, Nebraska, it is illegal for burglars to come in or out of the front door. That's just too fun. I could write too many stories about why on earth they made that a law, or even a story about what happens after the fact. But anyways, there you go. That's your challenge for this week. All right, let's get to part 2. And I want to talk about bookstores, more specifically Barnes & Noble. If it is your dream to have your book in every Barnes & Noble in America, here's something you need to know. If you publish your book directly through Amazon first, most Barnes & Nobles will not place your book on their bookshelf. They will not buy through Amazon. Just understand Barnes & Noble and Amazon are competitors, fierce competitors. So if you want your paperback books or hardcover books to be on the shelves on Barnes & Noble, and I don't just mean on the local section, because of course most local bookstores, Barnes & Nobles, will take your book on their bookshelves, and you might even be able to get, some other places to do it as well. But if you want it available to all the Barnes & Noble bookstores, it has to be published through Ingram. And I think there might be a couple other places you can do it, but Ingram is the biggest one. And the thing about Ingram is this. If you publish your book through Amazon, Ingram will not publish you. They will not. So if you want to get your book on the bookshelves at Barnes & Noble specifically, you need to publish your book through Ingram first and then publish your book through Amazon. And of course, you don't have to publish your book through Amazon at all if you don't want to. Ingram does distribute through Amazon, but it is slow. Amazon, again, because they are not fans of Barnes & Noble, or they're not fans of Ingram because they're competitors, sometimes it takes a month. They won't put it on Prime, so it can take a lot longer for your customers to get the book. So you'll want to probably publish through Ingram first and then publish directly through Amazon yourself. And you can do that. I have done that with all of my books now. So I publish through Ingram first, and then I publish directly through Amazon. Now, the good thing about Ingram now is that it doesn't cost you any money. It used to cost you $75 to upload your title to Ingram. I think they have picked up on the fact that it's really easy to do on Amazon now, so they've gotten rid of their title setup fees. So it actually is free to publish your book through Ingram. So it is really a strong suggestion for you to publish your book through Ingram first and then do it through Amazon. So that is my suggestion, and I did not know that ahead of time, but now I know, and now it's the only way I do it. I published through Ingram first. So this book that I have that's coming out October 1st, I will put a link to the pre-order again in my description here. That book, Ingram first, and then Amazon. That's how I did it. And the last thing I want to talk about that I wish I had known before I had published my first book is that it is to your advantage to have a website before you publish your book. What you want to do is, if you're going to be going places to sell your book, you want people to be able to Google you and you have a website. Even if all you have on your website is a static page which has your picture and your bio and a little bit of information about you and your book, That's really all you need, but that is at least something. It is a professional author image on the web that people can Google and find you, and it is important. And it is something I didn't have and I wish I had, because I know when I first started selling my books back in 2013 that several people asked about my website and I did not have one. So that is something that you will want to do anyways as an author. So doing it ahead of time is a great way to at least have your foot in the door of having yourself known as a professional author. Well, that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the episode, please give me a like, leave a comment. If you are an author and you have things you wish you had known, please drop them in the comments. That's something that we can all certainly, as the author community, share with up and coming authors. I do publish a new episode every single week, so I will see you next Wednesday. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the rest of your week.